Good evening. Thank you all for being here this evening. We're here to celebrate not quite the conclusion of the Model Constitutional Convention, but close. We had 8 hours of debate today. I suppose there's half an hour of lunch in there, but I'm sure some discussions continued over lunch. And I just want to applaud the students that are here from all over the country for your incredible energy, your civility in your conversations, and the depth of your deliberations. It was truly astonishing to watch and incredibly inspiring for those old people in the room who know that the next generation of Americans are going to be you. And you, I know, will we'll be in good hands with you in charge. So we are really grateful for all of you for being here. And we're looking forward to tomorrow. I want you to know that the mentors are working hard on their poly-market bets right now about what amendments will end up being adopted. We're really excited. We've all got different ideas about how many will be adopted and which ones. In Phoenix, we had 4 amendments adopted on the final day, and I know you're looking forward to determining what ultimately will come out of this convention. I think most important for us, those of us who plan the convention and who are interested in its outcome, is that you were engaged in a process of deliberative decision-making governed by Robert's Rules of Order, and you really rose to the occasion to do so. I was very, very proud of how well and able you all were in the form of questions that you had to ask and the kinds of amendments that you posed and everything else that you did today on the floor. So congratulations to each and every one of you, all of you, who were such incredible delegates today. Congratulations. And since we're recognizing important delegates here today, I also just want to make sure that we give a very warm round of applause to the leaders that were sort of in charge of the convention today and did such an extraordinary job. If you think about it, one of them had to stand for the entire 8 hours, and I think she was wearing high heels. I want to thank Callista, Marin, and Kylie for your energy, commitment, and dedication today. Truly amazing leadership, truly. I'd like to especially welcome some distinguished guests that we have here with us this evening. We have Professor Richard Albert, who I'll be introducing in more detail in a minute. Professor Albert, thank you for being here, as always. One of the greatest champions of the Model Constitutional Convention, really in the country, maybe the greatest champion of the Model Constitutional Convention. So we'll introduce you in a minute. I want to recognize Matt Gabel, who is a professor of political science, who's here with us today at WashU. He's the Charles F. and Joanne Knight Alzheimer's Disease Research Center faculty here at WashU and an extraordinary political science professor and one of my good friends. Thank you for being here, Matt. David Koenig is Emeritus Professor of Law and History at WashU. David, thank you for being with us today. He has had a major impact at WashU in both history and law, so thank you for being with us, David. The Honorable Mary Russell, who is a Missouri Supreme Court Justice. Justice Russell, thank you for being here. Grateful that you're here. And we are expecting potentially Chancellor Martin. He's flying in, so he may be with us, and we look forward to welcoming him here if his flight arrives in time. So this evening, we're going to first hear from our distinguished speaker, Professor Albert. And once we've heard from Professor Albert, who I know's comments will be fascinating about the intersection of AI and constitutional reform, we will break for dinner. And dinner is being served buffet style, so we will move table by table. And I think David, wherever he is, David Ellington, who I don't know how he's still awake. I just don't know. Has been going sort of just endlessly for 3 days for us. Will let us know which table needs to go to the buffet. And then once we have our dinner, we're going to finish our dinner and we'll be served dessert, I think, at the table with coffee. And over dessert and coffee, we will be announcing the award winners from today's deliberations. And so that's the way that, that this evening is going to go. It's now my incredible honor to introduce Professor Richard Albert. He holds the Heinz H. Baker and Thelma Kelly Baker Chair in Law at the University of Texas at Austin, where he's also professor of government and director of constitutional studies. He has published over 30 books on constitutions, democracy, and the rule of law. He has put his research into practice in his role as an advisor to governments and parliaments on constitution making and constitutional amendment. He was appointed by the Prime Minister of Jamaica to serve on that country's Constitutional Reform Committee to advise on writing and enacting a new Republican Constitution. He is currently the Constitutional Advisor to the Constitutional Convention of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Richard Albert holds law and political sciences degrees from Yale, Oxford, and Harvard. And I want to thank him, again, I mentioned before, but I want to thank him for his support to the Model Constitutional Convention. Even in the planning stages, Richard was really shoulder to shoulder with us in helping us think through what this Constitutional Convention should look like. And he is our greatest champion, really, nationwide. I'm sure many of you might have heard from him or seen his social media posts about the convention, and he has really helped spread the word about the significance of this event. I'm really grateful that you're here, Richard. We look forward to hearing from you.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I want to begin by saying thank you. Thank you to the organizers. They've been thanked already, but I don't think they can be thanked enough. The communications team, the media team, the dining team, everyone who had a hand in making this event possible. Thank you very much, not just on behalf of the speakers and the delegates, but everyone. This is really a gift that you've given, not just to yourselves, to this university, really to the country, I think, because this is a rehearsal for the future. I do think that there will be an effort, a major effort, to convene a second constitutional convention at the national level, and I would not be surprised if some of you were involved in that. So to all the organizers, thank you so very much. Before you clap, let me also make sure that we thank and honor the founder of this event, Dean Steph Lindquist. You've thanked everyone over the past 2 days, and I'm sure you've been thanked privately, but I think you deserve a very meaningful standing ovation of thanks for all you've done. And I want to thank in particular the faculty mentors and the peer mentors. Pleasure to get to know you, exchange ideas with you, and to see many of you again, because we did this 2 years ago. Imagine James Madison were writing a constitution today in the year 2026. Would he ask for parchment, or would he ask for Wi-Fi? Would he fill his inkwell to the very top of the rim so he could draft by hand for hours late into the night? Or would he ask for a large language model to generate a draft constitution in a matter of mere seconds? You may have already asked yourselves these questions about your own obligations, ethical obligations as a delegate to this model constitutional convention. Is it cheating to use AI this weekend? If yes, who is being cheated? And out of what? We're clearly no longer in the year 1787 when James Madison gathered in the Philadelphia State House to write, along with his colleagues, the U.S. Constitution that endures to this day. It's a very different time. Just look at the tables around you, check your pockets, inside your bags. We are in a new era, a new world of generative algorithms and predictive analytics. Parchment has been replaced by screens. Ink has been replaced by pixels, you are standing at the threshold of a profound evolution in constitution making. Historically, the authors of constitutions have been legislatures, constitutional conventions, constituent assemblies, and the people themselves. What's different about today is that there's a new option for constitutional authorship: a machine. In 2026, a machine can write your constitution right now, today. A sufficiently sophisticated large language model can write a constitution for any country in the world in a matter of moments. You can do it tonight. Just open up your favorite large language model and ask, draft a new constitution for a parliamentary system with a charter of rights and freedoms, a constitutional court, and rules for indigenous self-government, and everything else needed to sustain a democracy, and you'll have your draft within 30 seconds or fewer. It'll be coherent, it'll be grammatically polished, it will contain rules that will be mostly indistinguishable from a document prepared by experienced human drafters, working for 6 months or more to get that document right. You can get that in 30 seconds today. All of this is not just possible, it's happening right now. And people seem pretty comfortable with this new reality of constitution making. Just last year, the president of Ecuador declared quite matter-of-factly to the world that ChatGPT could be used, perhaps would be used, to write the country's next constitution. So, yes, at this very moment, AI is being used to write and reform constitutions all over the world. And I know this because I've been seated at the table where constitutions are written. Here, for example, is a photo of the Constitutional Reform Committee of Jamaica, convened in 2023 by the Prime Minister, to advise the government on writing a new constitution for the country. You can see pictured in the photo the Prime Minister seated in the middle, to his left, the Attorney General, and to his right, the chair of the committee. I'm seated there in the far left of the photo. I'm the only non-Jamaican on the committee as we continue our work, though we've run into some bumps. I've advised governments and parliaments and political parties on making and amending constitutions in Europe, in Albania, for example, in Latin America, in Chile, for example, and in the Caribbean, in Barbados, for example. So I can tell you that I've seen AI used in making and reforming constitutions. So, on the technical question, can AI write or reform your constitution? The answer is yes, it can. But there's a harder question to ask. AI can do it, but should it? Should AI write your constitution? That's what I want to spend my time talking with you about today. What AI can do, what it cannot do, and what AI must never be permitted to do. I also want to take you on a journey to where I traveled just last week, to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Why there? Because the U.S. Virgin Islands is presently, as we speak, writing its first ever constitution in a constitutional convention not unlike the one that you're simulating here this weekend. I've been appointed the constitutional advisor to this body, and I'll tell you a bit about that. I'll also tell you about the conditions associated most strongly with success in constitution making. And then I'll close by telling you about a college student who changed American history. He was armed with nothing but this: a typewriter, a postage stamp, and a tireless persistence that is uncommon but inspiring. At least I hope it will be to you, because it has been to me. So there are going to be 3 threads to my remarks tonight: AI in constitution making, the U.S. Virgin Islands Constitutional Convention, and one amazing college student. And all 3 threads are connected by the same issue: same topic, the same question, and that question is, who holds the quill when you're writing a new constitution? Constitution making is not just about generating a text. It's an act of collective self-definition. It is a people deciding not merely what rules shall govern them, but who they are, what they fear, what they hope, what they owe to each other, and what future they wish to build together. That's why the immediate reaction to the question, should AI write your constitution, the immediate reaction is probably no for most people. And yet, that reaction, while it is completely understandable, I don't think is particularly well informed. And let me explain to you why. Because constitution making is not just one moment. It is a sequence of tasks, each indispensable. AI may have a role in some of those tasks, but it must not have a role in other tasks, and I'll try to distinguish one set of tasks from the other. To answer that question, which is which, my co-author, Kevin Frazier, and I conducted the first global survey of constitutional experts on artificial intelligence. We asked them, scholars all around the world, from Albania to Vietnam, Bangladesh to Brazil, South Korea to South Africa. We asked them, how would you use AI in writing a new constitution? The results were both reassuring and surprising. Reassuring because constitutional experts, it turns out, are not Luddites. They're okay with using some technology in constitution making. 87% of them agreed that AI can improve government systems and services. That's good. 77% agreed that AI has great potential to improve constitution making, provided there are appropriate safeguards. That's reasonable. The results of the poll, to me, were surprising in other ways, because what emerged from our results was a clear set of fault lines, a division. 92% of experts said that AI should not be used to decide whether or not to ratify a constitution. That seems to make sense to me. 94% said AI should not be used to determine which values to prioritize when making a constitution. Again, that makes sense. But 83% of experts said that AI should be used to conduct the comparative, historical, and legal research that informs constitution drafting. Very interesting. And 83% said that AI should be used to analyze the vast volumes of public comments that the people submit during a constitution-making process. These results reveal to me and my co-author a community of scholars all around the world who are cautiously optimistic about technology, but fiercely protective of the sacrality of popular choice. In other words, constitutional experts are far more open to using AI as an assistant than as a sovereign. They're far more willing to use AI for research, synthesis, comparison, than for choosing constitutional values or deciding whether a constitution should or should not be ratified. These data are really interesting, but I want you to see something deeper than numbers in these data. What I want you to see, what I want to invite you to see, is a principle that to me jumps off the pages of these poll results. And that principle is that there's no more solemn exercise of popular sovereignty than the act of a people constituting themselves under a higher law. That principle traces back to the French revolutionary theorist Emmanuel Sieyès, to his theory of constituent power. That theory places the people, and only the people, at the center of the constitution-making enterprise. I mentioned a moment ago, constitution making is not a single moment. It's a sequence of discrete steps. And each and every step in that sequence implicates popular sovereignty in different ways. Casting a vote, for example, on whether to ratify a constitution, that's sacred. Translating the consensus of a convention into clear, internally consistent legal text, perhaps more craft. The first cannot, should not be delegated. The second can be substantially augmented by machines. That distinction helps us, helps me, build a simple but important rule. AI can be used to sharpen the quill, but it must never be allowed to hold the quill. Let me try to make that principle more practical with a few examples. AI can be an excellent research assistant. If you haven't yet done so, I suggest you give it a shot. It can gather comparative materials in different languages far faster than any human team. It can help constitution makers see the entire menu of constitutional possibilities before choosing among those possibilities. AI can also be used as a diagnostic tool. It can flag vague terms in a text, conflicting provisions across sections of a text, hidden redundancies, structural incoherences, and unintended spillovers. AI can ask the drafter the questions the drafter forgot to ask. AI can also amplify democracy. AI can help summarize public consultations. It can help cluster the concerns of the people around specific subject matters and topics. It can translate foreign language submissions. It's almost miraculous. AI can heighten the hearing capacity of constitution drafters so they can better represent their people. But there are uses of AI that are, to me, improper. AI must not be the author of constitutional identity that stems directly from the people. AI must not choose constitutional values. AI must not substitute for public deliberation. Perhaps most obviously, AI must not decide whether or not to ratify a constitution. Quite simply, AI must not be mistaken for the people. Now, you've surely, I would imagine, delegates, surely been tempted to ask AI to help you do your work as a delegate this weekend in this constitutional convention. And if you've done that, I hope you've been intentional in the way you've used AI. I hope that through it all, you have kept your own hand on the quill because the quill belongs to you. I mentioned earlier that I've been appointed the constitutional advisor to the convention in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Last week, I was in St. Thomas to discuss the current draft of their constitution with the delegates elected to the convention. They're a remarkable group of patriots. Individually, they're quite accomplished, and collectively, they're impressive. They were elected to represent the people of their territory, the people of their islands. I do believe they have their people's best interests at heart. I see that when I work with them. They're working very hard to get their draft constitution across the finish line. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be very difficult. Here's how tough it is to enact a constitution if you're a territory. First, you have to agree among the elites in the country. That's hard. Then, you got to send it to the President of the United States. And the President has to sign off on it, as does the DOJ. They send a memo to the Congress, and the Congress then has to sign off on it too. It's then sent back to the governor in the territory, where, if all goes well, the people must then vote in a referendum to adopt it. That is a gauntlet. This is the 6th time that the U.S. Virgin Islands has tried to enact a constitution. This is my first time being involved, and it's been amazing to watch these people do their work. Very moving, really inspiring to see just how, of course, seriously they're taking their work, like you all are taking your work. I've been inspired by you as well. When the time comes tomorrow for you to vote on your constitutional amendment proposals, you may succeed, you may not. But let me share with you 5 key ingredients to a successful constitution-making project in democracies. If you're not democracy, do whatever you want. In democracies, it's a little more difficult. I've identified several conditions that are strongly correlated with success when it comes to constitution making. None on its own is a guarantee, no, but they're strongly correlated with success. Here are just 5 of them. Constitution making is more likely to succeed when the process is inclusive, transparent, and broadly representative. The way you make a constitution matters as much as what that constitution contains in its text. A constitution drafted in secret by self-appointed elites, however wise those people may be, they may be the best people in the jurisdiction, but that doesn't matter because it will not enjoy the legitimacy of a constitution drafted in public by representatives selected through a procedure the people believe is fair. And why is this important? Inclusivity, transparency, representation, because it builds trust. Second, constitution making is more likely to succeed when the process has adequate time with a credible deadline. You all know about deadlines. You barely made it today, right? The optimal duration of a constitution-making process is long enough to permit deliberation, but short enough to maintain political focus. If it's too short, the document will be rushed. Too fast, the moment will pass. A schedule with deadlines becomes an ally in constitution making because it creates positive pressure. The pressure of a deadline is an ally because it forces choice among competing alternatives. Because without a deadline, a draft can be perfected forever and ever and ever. 3, constitution making is more likely to succeed when the process includes genuine public engagement and civic education. Voters who don't understand what they're being asked to ratify will tend to vote no. That's why public education in processes like these is not an ornament. It's central to the constitution-making project. Even carefully designed and well-intentioned constitutional reform proposals will fail when the public has not been prepared for them. Public engagement and civic education breed a necessary feeling of popular ownership of the Constitution. 4, constitution making is more likely to succeed when the Constitution is drafted to enable rather than to resolve public policy debates. Successful constitution making, I found, requires drafters to resist the temptation to write into the Constitution every single preferred policy outcome. Constitutions are just not policy platforms. They're a framework within which policy debates are meant to take place. And so it's more likely to be successful when those writing the Constitution, you, ask yourselves an honest question about every single provision you wish to put into the Constitution. That question is this: is this provision essential to the constitutional project, or is it a policy preference that could be pursued through ordinary legislation after representative political debate? Finally, 5, constitution making is more likely to succeed when the process is reconciliatory and consensus-driven. What I've learned in the 11, 12 years that I've been advising parliaments and governments and parties on constitution making is that constitution making is not a legal process. It's a political process. And polarized political environments are difficult terrain for constitutional reform. You know that political polarization is corrosive. that it's destructive, well, it destroys constitution-making projects as well. That's why a document that is seen as the product or property of a single political camp is likely to be opposed by the other political camp. That's why consensus is crucial to success in constitution making, because the people take their cues from their leaders, those empowered to write the Constitution in their name. So, if the constitution-making body is divided, the people will be divided too. And that will put into peril the prospect of enacting a resilient constitution. So the best case scenario is to produce a draft that the major political camps can defend, even if no single camp would have written that constitution on its own. What's happening in this moment in the U.S. Virgin Islands is very special. The people of the Virgin Islands are doing constitution making in the old-fashioned way, with humans in rooms talking to each other. They're using technology, of course. So, for example, they're circulating drafts electronically among themselves. They're holding hybrid meetings where some people come in person and others join online. And they're engaging the public on digital platforms. But the deliberation is fully human. The negotiation is fully human. The arguments, the compromises, the breakthroughs, those are human. That's constituent power in motion. I've been asking myself the question, will that constitutional convention succeed? I certainly hope so, for the sake of the people of the Virgin Islands. Their work is historic, and they're giving voice, or trying to give voice to the views and values of the people they represent. Their work will have an impact across the United States. The last state to enact a constitution in this union was, anyone know? Rhode Island in 1987. Before that, Georgia in 1983. Before that, Louisiana in 1975. So the U.S. Virgin Islands Constitution will be something new. It will draw attention, it will draw scrutiny. And it will signal, however, more importantly, that there's something special happening here in the United States. But their work is important not just for the Virgin Islands, not just for this country. Their work is important for the entire world, and let me tell you why. In recent years, substantial efforts to remake democratic constitutions around the world, they failed. Chile, failed. Australia, failed. Iceland, failed. Jamaica, maybe failed. All of these are democratic states. All of these are sites of recent mega constitutional failures. But in contrast, consider the most recently enacted constitutions around the world. Syria, last year, a new constitutional declaration. Togo, 2024. Sudan and Cuba, 2019. Thailand, 2017. Ivory Coast, Central African Republic, and Zambia in 2016. These countries have one key feature in common. They're not democracies. It's much harder to make a constitution in a democracy because process matters here. You saw that today in action and yesterday. Process matters. Substance matters. The voice of the people matters. Democracy, as you've seen today, not just here, but on TV, all around us, democracy is messy, it's complex, it's difficult to navigate. But as you'll feel tomorrow at noon, it's worth the effort. That's why I think the success of the Constitutional Convention in the U.S. Virgin Islands matters beyond their territory and well beyond this country. It matters to the democratic peoples all around the world because it will show that democratic constitution making is still possible, that it's worthwhile, and that people of different political camps can still work together. You're facing the same challenge this weekend, the same test you'll face tomorrow when you gather to vote. And we'll all be watching whether you can find your way to agreement. The story of constitutional change in this country is the story of people with ideas, and the persistence to see them through. It's not a story of efficient processes. It's not a story of well-funded committees. It's not a story of brilliant algorithms, at least not yet. It's a story of people just like the 100+ of you here in this room. It's a story of students, believe it or not, just like you. Constitutions, of course, are made of text, but they're made by people. They don't change because paper gets restless. They change because somebody believes an idea is right and believes it long enough and believes it strongly enough. And that's what I want you to hear tonight, you, the delegates to this constitutional convention. You're delegates. You're not observers. You're not tourists. You're delegates, which means that for this weekend, you're exercising a constitutional role. You're practicing the art of democratic authorship. And you understand that clearly. I've seen that in you, in your negotiations, in your committees, in the plenary sessions. I've seen that. You understand that the distance between simulation and citizenship this weekend has been collapsing. One of you, maybe more than one of you, may be the next Gregory Watson. This is him today. In 1982, Gregory Watson was a sophomore business major at the university where I teach, the University of Texas at Austin. He was a student, just like many of you. He enrolled in a large political science course that he was required to take. He didn't even choose to take it. He was required to take it. And one of the assignments in the course was to write a paper on any subject he wished involving American government. So he set out in search of a topic. He went to the Austin Public Library, and there he combed the stacks, and he stumbled onto a book about unratified constitutional amendments, amendments that had made it through Congress, but that the states had not ratified. In that book, he discovered an unratified amendment proposal from 1789, authored by James Madison. Here is what that amendment proposal said. It basically prevents Congress from voting itself a pay raise that goes into effect without there first being an election. Why? Because we don't want those scoundrels to give themselves $1 million raise before we have a chance to say, no, we're voting you out and replacing you with people who are going to repeal that law. Unlike the Equal Rights Amendment, which had an expiration date in that same year, 1982, in which he was enrolled in this course, that same year, the ERA expired. Unlike that amendment, Madison's proposal had no expiration date at all. And so this led to Gregory Watson's eureka moment. The light bulb went out. He thought that if there's no expiration date to this amendment proposal initiated by James Madison 2 centuries ago, why can't we pass it now? So Gregory Watson wrote his paper making the case for ratifying this amendment. He submitted the paper with pride, and then his grade came back. C-. Now, for most of us, that C- would have been the end. We might have grumbled. We might have felt a bit of disappointment, maybe anger, I don't know. And then we would have moved on. But Gregory Watson responded in a way that no one, perhaps not even he, expected. He knew he was right about that amendment proposal. He thought that it was a good idea, that it was worth ratifying. So he started a letter-writing campaign. He targeted state legislators in states that had not yet ratified that amendment. He found a sympathetic ear the next year, in 1983, in Maine, then Colorado in 1984. And he spent that decade of his life, his 20s, doggedly pursuing the idea of ratifying this 2 centuries-old amendment proposal. Finally, 10 years after he enrolled in this course, in May 1992, Alabama became the 38th state to ratify the amendment. That's the magic number, as you know, for state ratifications. And the amendment became official. This is what the amendment actually looks like. This is it. We don't actually break the glass in the rotunda of the National Archives, yank out the old Constitution and write in 28th Amendment or whatever. No, this is the official amendment. And so more than 2 centuries after James Madison held the quill, a college student from Austin forced the hand of the US Congress. And now the 27th Amendment is part of the supreme law of the land because of that sophomore. And by the way, what happened to that C-? Well, in 2017, 25 years after the 27th Amendment was ratified, Greg Watson got a grade change. His new grade, and here he is, was an A+. An A+. To this day, by the way, that A+ is the only one ever awarded by the University of Texas at Austin to a college student. Greg Watson's story is one not only about the 27th Amendment, it's about constitutional authorship from below. It's a story about the power of one person, a story about the power of an idea before it became fashionable, a story about being told no by authority and continuing anyway, a story about persistence outlasting pedigree. It's a story about how constitutional change sometimes begins when no one is looking, in a classroom, in a library, in this case, in a student paper. And that, I think, is exactly the lesson that I'd like you to hear, delegates, to this constitutional convention. You are rehearsing what happens in your life after this convention. You're rehearsing what you will do to improve your community after this convention. What you'll do to improve your town, your city, your county, your state, your country, our world, maybe. So, who holds the quill? Not the algorithm, not the expert. The people hold the quill. But the people, as I now close, the people is not an abstraction that floats high above us all, high above history and time. It becomes real only when actual human beings accept the responsibility for constitutional authorship. It becomes real when delegates like you deliberate, when citizens insist, when drafters listen, when reformers persist, and when students like Gregory Watson, like you this weekend, refuse to believe that constitutional change belongs only to someone else. That's when the people hold the quill. I began by inviting you to imagine James Madison writing a constitution today. Would he use a quill or would he use ChatGPT? If James Madison walked into your constitutional convention deliberations earlier today or tomorrow morning, I think he might be surprised, for sure, to see laptops instead of parchment. But I think what would matter most to him is not the technology on your tables. I think it's whether you, as delegates, understand the responsibility in your hands. Whether you are using every tool that helps you to think better. Whether you're drawing from every comparison that can help you a better drafter. Whether you're using every innovation that can help you hear more voices. That, I think, is what he would really care about. So let me invite you to never surrender the sovereign act of constitution making, certainly here and certainly in the future when some of you will go on to be elected leaders all across this great land. We are now at the moment where the quill is changing, but we must never let the efficiency of the algorithm replace the friction in human deliberation. As delegates here gathered at the 2026 Model Constitutional Convention, you are the holders of the quill. Wield that quill with courage. Use it with wisdom. Use it with the knowledge that one person, one idea can change the very foundation of the world. So remember, AI can sharpen your quill. but only a people should write their own constitution. Congratulations to each of you for the work you're doing here. I'm so excited to see what you decide to do tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Richard, thank you so much for that inspiring talk. We have had some really magnificent speakers at this convention, and a wonderful way to end with a note of empowerment for the students that are in our convention, that are in our dinner here this evening, with a focus on creativity, which is so important to what everyone is doing here, and a focus on the comparative nature of constitution making and comparative constitutional law, which I think the students here did get an exposure to in the Canvas course that we taught, but constitutions come in many forms. And thank you for highlighting that, and certainly the difficulty of making a great constitution, which I certainly hope for the best for St. Thomas right now. So thank you. We have a gift for you. I think, here it is. Chris is bringing it over. I think we're going to ship it to you again so it can fit, so it doesn't have to fit into your carry-on, but. I also want to recognize that our chancellor has arrived. For those of you who may have university presidents on your campus, at WashU we have a chancellor, and Chancellor Martin is here with us this evening. Thank you so much for being here. He had to fly in. He is himself a law professor and a political scientist like me, and so has expressed an interest in this convention from the beginning. And so thank you, Chancellor Martin, for your support for this convention. Really appreciate your being here.